Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I rank the 1992 basketball card designs. And this is a single ranking of all the basketball designs because there were only 8. And yet, we're actually kind of lucky that we can do an entire ranking of all of these because of the fact that this was the year that basketball saw their big explosion. Every sport had its year where there was a big explosion of card packs, different card sets that were available to buy. And hockey is the most ridiculous, where they started off with 1, they ended up with 5. In 1990, it was just an amazing, it was like the whole industry just woke up and went, oh, hockey, I didn't know that it was there. But with basketball, that hadn't happened yet. It would take a while to get there. Because during that time, basketball was inching along set by set by set. In 88, they had 1 set. 89, they had 2 sets. 1990, 3 sets. 1991, 4 sets. And then all of a sudden, just like that, in 1992, 8. It doubled. And so all of a sudden there were 8 card sets. And not just that, but the card designs, there was something very interesting about the 1992 year for basketball cards where it felt like they were in transition. And in some cases that was good, and in some cases it wasn't all that great. But it is a very distinct year in basketball. There's a very particular feel that these cards have. And the reason for the explosion was quite simply because, hey, Topps showed up again. Finally, the absentee dad came back home. And for wanting to wow the kids, because that's exactly what Topps wanted to do. They really wanted to wow the basketball card market. They got off to a pretty shaky start with their top set. And that's simply because the main card wasn't the whole point. The point of the 1992 Topps set was the gold foil parallel. And trust me, we were all about that gold parallel. It was a really amazing thing for all of us to discover and chase like crazy. So we did, but when you're chasing the parallel, you don't really notice the main card set, which is good because the main cards in basketball are really lousy. In football, they actually pulled it off, and part of the reason is because the team colors in football work really well, but the main reason is because football images read a lot better just naturally. They have more flexibility to them. And Topps did seem to put a lot of emphasis into the football card images. So that was a big strength they had there, but in basketball, it was the exact polar opposite. A lot of the team colors didn't read very well, but the big thing is the images in basketball are too busy, and that doesn't work. And the printing process still wasn't great, so you get these pictures that are big landscapes. You really want to get into the intricate details of the images, and yet the printing process doesn't give it to you. The images are not well selected for it, and it doesn't have any gloss on it. So none of the things that would help were there, and it just makes the card really quite bland. And on top of that, the cards did actually read in a very bland way. I mean, it is just a boring card. It's a very Topps card. It really sadly was. And so this, for a card set that should be a big celebration for showing back up into the hobby, they could have done better. And then moving along from that, the whole celebration that they kicked off was featured with a card set called Archives. And Topps Archives was not like what they did in baseball and football, where they actually reprinted old card sets. No, in basketball, they wanted to give us a look at the life that we never had when our absentee dad was away. So they took the baseball card designs of the 1980s and into the 90s of all the years when they were making baseball cards but not making basketball cards, and they showed us what the rookie cards of the stars could have looked like if they were on basketball cards. And just like listening to an absentee dad talk about his life when he was away and showing pictures of the life that you didn't get to live, that's kind of the way that it is. The idea is really great. I love the concept of it. The problem is it's a clunky realization. And while these cards looked really cool early on, they don't hold up over time. And over time means like over months, not over decades. Where the problem really occurs is the fact that when you design a card, you're designing that card around the sport. And these cards are designed for baseball. They're not designed for basketball. Just the nature of how the basketball images read doesn't correlate very well across. On top of that, the card designs are designed in a certain era for a certain type of cardstock. And this card set This was on a high gloss cardstock, so it didn't even have the ability to read on the cardstock. And the printing process was different. The images weren't very well selected. It was kind of an afterthought affair, which is kind of an absentee dad kind of a thing. Unfortunately, this card set, I want to love it, but I can't love it because it's just a clunky affair that doesn't read well at all. So yeah, it's just, they really dropped the ball on this. But thankfully, as we move up to 6, we're stepping away from Topps and we're going with NBA Hoops. The NBA Hoops card, for me, when I look at this, all I see is it in contrast to 1991. And in that case, I'm all for it. I think it's a really good step forward. It does have a cool kind of modernistic quality to it, if you understand that era. It looks so 1992 basketball. It really does. The thing is, NBA Hoops started off as a really innovative card company where the cards were in 89 and 1990 very bold, very distinct, very cool looking. 1991, they scaled it way too far back, hoping that the images would be all that would read on the card, and unfortunately the images didn't read well enough to overpower the rest of the card. In 1992, now they're starting to play around a bit, and they added some details that actually made it kind of work, and it helped to enunciate the shot, but also the pictures tended to be better chosen. Now, if you've already watched my worst of football card designs for 1992, you might notice that there's a big stupid stripe down the side. I don't know what it is with the stripe, but in this case, it kind of works. It adds an interesting quality that makes it kind of cool. I think it would have been better if they went borderless and they had that stripe floating just off of the edge of the card. That probably would have been a really cool effect. Regardless, just that ghosting does make the card come alive in a cool way, and it has some really strong colors in it, and so that all of the details that you need to make the card have actual interest and be distinct, those are all there. And so I see it as a big improvement over 1991. But that's what it is. It's a big improvement over 1991. I would say this is middle of the road. That is the best way I would describe it. But then we transition from that to design number 5, and that is 1992's Ultra. And this really shows that this whole scale is tilted. The cards in basketball in 1992 tended to be a lot better than in the other sports. Topps aside, the year just reads beautifully, and the fact is that this might be the best Ultra card from 1992. Thankfully, they didn't do Ultra for basketball in 1991. That would have been absolutely horrendous. But for 1992, they were able to use a really cool design concept, and they almost mastered it here in this set. I'm not a big fan of the color down at the bottom, but the color works pretty well. But the whole bottom of the card, it has very distinct, strong boxes that I'm used to in the other sets, except here, they read so much stronger. I've always loved the way that these boxes look. They're very distinct, very clear, very bold. They really pull your eye in. And the card design itself, it has everything it needs to be great, except the images aren't very distinct. Even when the cards have some distinction, the images just don't really read as much as I'd like to. And that's where this all really falls apart. Even the logo kind of disappears in the image. So the cards don't have the wow factor, the grab you and pull you in that we would see in 1993. That's why this is down here at number 5, which is just below average, which is still an above average card, but for basketball, it is below average. When we move up to 4, we hit the other top set, which is Stadium Club. And Stadium Club, I'm a big fan of this set for one simple reason. I've never liked Stadium Club. It's just a boring card. They try to strip everything away so that you can focus on the image, and then they don't choose good images. Except in 1992 for basketball. And in this case, I actually think the images pull off exactly what these cards are supposed to do. Now in 1991, the problem was more the printing technology than the images. But in 1992, the images just didn't read on the Stadium Club cards the way that they really needed to. But here in basketball, I'm so glad that they did, because this is an absolute hit or miss type of a set, and they actually hit. They actually succeeded. So I look at these cards, I go, yes, that. See, that's Stadium Club. That's what it's supposed to be. And I'm glad they actually pulled it off for one set. Nice little relief. So as we move up to number 3, now we're moving into the upper tier, and this is an area where it's really tough for me to choose between them. Ultimately, I think that the 3 spot is a pretty comfortable one, which is Fleer. And the Fleer card, to me, this is about the height of Fleer. Fleer had a really tough time developing great card designs. It just, that was its thing. And in this one case, I think they absolutely nailed it. Now, it's not perfect, not at all, but it has everything that it needs. It has a great metallic gold border, which just sets a great mood. Just, it feels so cool. They have not even a splash of team color. They have a big, bold, strong statement of the team colors, but it doesn't overpower the card. It is a perfect complement. I love the logo on it. The back, I love the back. Everything is perfect for showcasing a great image, and oh yeah, they forgot to put a great image on it. And that's what really, it's weird. Ultra, they had kind of a similar situation, but in the case of Ultra, the whole card was great. The image was boring. In this case, the card is not overall great because it doesn't have the glossy finish, which would have looked really cool with these cards. But the whole card design just carries so beautifully. It really reads well. I don't need the image. I don't care about the image. That's, at the end of the day, the situation. The images kind of hold the card back. That's kind of the way I see it. So that's why I have it here. But otherwise, I would love to put this at the top because, hey, Fleer can make a good card. Well, they could have if they'd really put everything together. They didn't. But then we get to the top 2, and for me, the top 2 is really tough. I go back and forth and back and forth, back and forth. And back is ultimately what I have to go with here. So, for me, the number 2 best basketball card in 1992 is Upper Deck. And the Upper Deck card is just really, this is a wonderfully intricate card. I never appreciated this card growing up, kind of like with 1991 Pinnacle. That card was something that I overlooked because I didn't know how to see it at the time. This 1992 Upper Deck set, it was basically the same way. It was years later where I actually started to take the time to look at it and go, oh, wow, that's great. It has not quite a retro quality to it, but something similar. It feels like it's got old qualities to it. And kind of an old-timey, modern fusion in a way, which is kind of weird. And then I was never a fan of the gold letters up at the top and the empty feeling that it had. But over the years, when I started to better be able to appreciate those little details, I came to realize they actually look really cool. This card is not a perfect card, not by a long shot, but it is the first set I think that Upper Deck ever did that was truly adventurous and trying to do something that was bold and totally unusual. And I think they absolutely pulled off those things. While the card is not a complete resolution of just making something that's absolutely amazing, it's really close. And I'm such a fan of the fact that they were able to pull this off as effectively as they did, and the images are great. But there's one minor little detail that is a major detail, which is that they still were using Upper Deck card backs, and that's a huge failure, which is why for me number 1 is Skybox. Skybox, this is the answer to the question we had in 1991 of where are they going to go with Skybox and what in the world could they possibly do with Skybox? It was all built around no background. And how long can you pull that off? Now, when they launched the football set in 1992, before this, they launched 2 sets. One was a straightforward card set with a straightforward, just the regular background, and the other one was an overly designed backdrop behind the player. And so it was interesting to see the 2 ideas that they had. But in basketball, the question is, look, you can only do that for so long, but where are you going to go with this? And the 1992 set was a perfect transition where it is the full background behind, great, great image selection, just absolutely fantastic image selection. And then a box or a swoosh of color or something in there to add a splash of something different. And it grounds the card and it makes the card feel something strong, special, really kind of distinct. And the colors are really strong, which helps a lot. All of that works beautifully. The problem is it is very, very, very simplistic, and it reads entirely because of the image selections, which, again, they nailed them, so that works. But where this card has its edge is on the card back. This is a phenomenal card back. It is all about the image. Now, that was the case in 1990. That was the case in 1991. But here, this is truly all about the image on the back. I think it's much more successful. And even though it also has almost no information on it, the no information looks really cool on the card back. This is a card where card front, card back, it's a great combination. The Upper Deck card front is better. Not by a long shot, but it's better. But this card has the whole combination of everything pulled together that you want. Now, it is a transitional set, just like Upper Deck is, just like most of these sets are. It begs the question, where are they going from it? And that's really what this is. This is that transition point between the two where you're looking at the past and you're anticipating the future. And it works beautifully. It's not the greatest card ever. I'll be looking at that in a whole nother video sometime down the road, but for this, that's how I rank the 8 different card designs for basketball in 1992. And so if you haven't seen the other videos that I've done about this, definitely check that out. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and thank you very much for watching.